Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today, we are going to take some time out for a grabbed episode. If you are new to the channel, you may notice that once in a while we shout out the hashtag grabbed and we tell everyone to share their stories using the hashtag grabbed in the comments section or to email us your stories at our email address grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. One of the ancient names for the planets were grahas, which means to grab. It can also mean to grasp, as in to understand, but there was a dual meaning that Indian astrologers had in that word graha, which meant that the planets sometimes, as administrators of karma and fate, grab us or seize our lives, and especially in relation to the unconscious dimensions of our psyches. And we also, if we study astrology, we have an opportunity through reflecting upon the sudden appearances of the planets and the way that they grab us to grasp or to understand something that they may be teaching us. And so this series is dedicated to highlighting your stories of the transits that you have experienced and the ways in which they served as, um, you know, education, soul education. So, and also just to celebrate the fact that we live in a universe that can be observed through the archetypal patterns of the planets. It's just an amazing thing that by recognizing we can put ourselves back into an enchanted cosmos. So, this series has been devoted for a long time to highlighting your stories and celebrating the daily appearances of the planets in our lives, the way they show up and grab us sometimes, and the way that we also grasp and understand through their appearances. So, another storytelling episode today. That is our agenda. I've got a bunch of stories to share and some reflections at the end, as I always do. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. If you would ever like to share them, again, just use the hashtag grabbed or email us your story, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. In the meantime, before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can pirouette your way onto the like button. You guys have been getting a little bit spicy. Someone said, I'm going to sit on the face of the like button. I was like, we're gonna go there. Okay, someone, you guys are you guys are having more fun than you ought to have with that. Anyway, however you do it, my favorite one was someone said, uh, what was it? Oh, I'm going to meditate on the like button to the point that I become the like button, and then I'm going to press myself. That was my favorite. Keep it clean, guys. Keep it clean. Anyway, you can find a transcript of today's talk on the website, nightlightastrology.com. I also want to point you guys to a few things that we're promoting this week. One is the start of Ashley's new herbal apprenticeship program. It's not new, she's just teaching it again for the first time in a couple of years since taking a maternity leave. If you want to learn more about Ashley's work and hear her teach, you can check out her YouTube channel, Skyhouse Herbs, on YouTube. Instagram is Skyhouse Herbs, and then the website is skyhouseherbs.com. When you go over there, you will see that her Herbal Foundations apprenticeship course is starting in late April and is on sale now. So if you want to sign up for the sale price, you can. When you go over to the website, click on courses, go to Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship. And at the end of today's program and all of our programs for a couple of weeks, at the very end, if you stick around after the content for the day, there's an interview that we have tagged onto the end where I sit down with Ashley and talk about her work as an herbalist, someone who works with the doctrine of signatures, plant spirit medicine, and she will tell you more about her program if you are interested in studying herbs and pairing it alongside of your interest in astrology. The two go together nicely and very intuitively. So the course is starting up soon, and at the end of today's program, you can learn more about it with Ashley. So on that note, I will also point you over to the Nightlight website and two things that you can check out there. One is we have a new shop. This is our digital archives. We have all of our masterclass series from 2023 that are available, or you can bundle them. You can also pick up a copy of access to my book as it comes out chapter by chapter, which will be, easily a year out before it is in published, paperback form. So easy way to read the book as it's being written. And then you can check out the live talks coming up this month of March. Neptune in Love on March 14th. That's happening as the sun is coming into a conjunction with Neptune. So another timely talk on Neptune significations in love and relationships. In April, we're doing Uranus in Love, so you can check those out. And then the Pluto in Love recording from February is also available for purchase. So check those things out. come sign up for the next webinar we're doing on Neptune and love. Hope to see you there. All right. Now, on that note, on to your stories. Most of the stories that I gathered for today's storytelling episode are came through contacts with Pluto. And a lot of them were the Venus-Pluto contact that came through around Valentine's Day. I just found that the quality of stories for that conjunction between Venus and Pluto were pretty profound. There are some Mercury-Pluto dynamics as well in the mix, but I focused a lot on transits to Pluto that have taken place recently as Pluto's moved into Aquarius. So anyway, it is always an honor to read your stories. So many people submitted stories to our email address and through the comment section. We aggregate those. I look through them. I couldn't possibly feature everyone. And so it's always just, what do I think? How can I sort of categorize and create a weave of different kinds of stories, usually that share some similar transits in common. So anyway, let's get into it. A lot of these are Venus-Pluto dynamics that came in around Valentine's Day again. So Venus-Pluto. I have been waiting for an appointment with my psychologist for about 2 months, which my husband must attend, as I've disclosed some things, which I didn't realize I was letting slide as someone who has a lot of childhood trauma. So the appointment will take place as Venus conjoins Pluto, she's saying. And she's saying stuff that I have put up with for 24 years is finally going to erupt in this session, and I think most likely end in our divorce. I can't wait for this release, even though all I can see in my mind's eye is the goddess Pele in a volcano erupting, scared but relieved knowing this is coming. Well, I hope it went well. And thank you so much for sharing. That is a very Venus-Pluto-like event to be taking place as the two planets get together. So I hope it went well for you. That has to be difficult, and I can feel that relief too. That's a great way of describing Venus-Pluto, is the kind of relief that comes through it. Now this one, Venus-Pluto. This is as the two planets came together. Talking with her husband. Husband begins with the whole "that's so gay" derogatory remark. I usually just ignore it when he says something like this and move on. But this time I paused and I said, it's okay to be gay. He said, no, it's not. And then I said, why not? He went on to say, you can control it, and it's genetic, but also environmental. So if I control the environment, then if one controls the environment, then it goes away. Then she went on to say that right before her husband's mother passed, she told me that the reason that her and her partner's or her spouse's father got divorced was because she found out that his dad was having an affair with a mutual guy friend. She said that her husband would never admit it, but that he's gay. And her husband is his son. And so she's reflecting, and she goes on, but I'll just summarize it, that her husband's homophobia is related intimately to things that happened with his dad, which he is not even maybe aware of. I thought that was, first of all, it's appalling to me when people are homophobic. And so good for you for saying something and for, trying to face something, or I think it's good to speak up, maybe there's growth that's possible for your husband. But what a Venus-Pluto thing to have happen. And to, it's interesting that you carry this secret about his dad that he doesn't know, and that you haven't wanted to confront him with. Just the whole thing was so Venus-Pluto. And I could only imagine the difficulty of knowing what to say, or, And I guess this comes from a person who has a strong Christian background as well, which is one of the things that you'll hear often in fundamentalist, religious communities, is that, oh, that's controllable. You can just change that about yourself. So anyway, it's a very dark and, I imagine, charged conversation to have as Venus was conjoined Pluto. Thank you for sharing it with us. This next Venus-Pluto example is interesting. I got picked up by my dinner date on Valentine's. He seemed a little off. Eventually, it would come out that he had been somewhere that day getting me a present when there was a shooting he was in, and he was leaving as police were literally rushing into the area. When we went back to my house later, there was this scary person lurking around outside who has been stealing from cars in the area recently. He stole 2 loaded guns from a work truck. Police have been called numerous times and never got him. Obviously, it wasn't exactly a relaxing vibe to come home to while you're trying to eat strawberry cupcakes. And then during the evening, as we were hanging out, I got a message from the relative of a friend of mine who had taken their own life last year. I felt very obligated to get back to them to support them in this hard time, but I was overwhelmed because I was trying to have a nice evening with my date in the midst of all of this. It was just a lot of crazy Venus-Pluto. And Mars-Pluto too was coming through. Yeah, I mean, first of all of that sounds very, like just an aura of Plutonian energy around Valentine's. And a lot of people saw that. There were so many stories like that around Valentine's Day, which is why I chose to focus on this transit. It's interesting, it creates a mood and a feeling. And when you know the transit is behind it, I mean, at the very least, it's helpful that you know what's going on. Here's another Venus-Pluto. My teenage son said something mean about another guy's girlfriend. The other guy knocked his drink out of his hand and said he would come over and beat his ass. My son said, "If you do, I will shoot you." Now both boys are suspended while the school investigates the threats. I'm hoping he doesn't get kicked out of school. These boys are so stupid and dramatic. Yeah, there's Venus-Pluto. You said something mean about my girlfriend. First of all, I mean, it's a shitty thing to do, but then let's kill each other over it. It's like, how Venus-Pluto does it get? How Mars-Pluto does it get? Mars conjoined Pluto. My mom is a teacher. I called her before she went into work. Over the last 2 school years, the bad behaviors of more and more students have escalated to the point where the teachers and other students don't always feel safe. Principal, superintendent, higher ups have set protocols that leave teachers somewhat powerless despite voicing concerns. So sometimes she goes on to talk about how things are thrown, threats are made, there's physical violence in the school at times. My mom told me this morning that she came across paperwork stuffed in a desk written by a student with lyrics that he altered from a song, and he added lyrics about a gun in my backpack and not being a snitch. This stuff is becoming normalized. Students are sent to the office just to return with a snack and a juice. And she goes on to talk about how she's frustrated that someone like her mom comes across things like this and not a lot happens. And that all transpired as Mars was conjoining Pluto. Ooh, that's hard. That's really hard. And I'm not an expert on any of these topics, but it does seem to me that, when I think about when I was in high school, Columbine happened. And that's the first memory I have of a really serious school act of violence like that. And it just seems like, it's normalized now. And to be reminded of that in this very powerful way with your mom, the teacher finding that note as Mars is conjoining Pluto is rattling, I'm sure. And it might leave you feeling a very typical Mars-Pluto theme of feeling a little powerless over forces that are like ominous or that we're somehow in denial of. Yeah. Here's a Mercury-Pluto conjunction. I ended up watching a podcast that aired a couple of years ago that came on automatically after a regular YouTube video. It was all about thought and how our thoughts are naturally wired at times to go to the darkest ideas to imagine them in order to keep us safe. There was lots on how to reprogram thoughts. It was really interesting. At the end, it switched to the dangers of AI, and we need to parent the AI to ensure it's ethical and acts in favor of the best of humanity and not the worst. Fascinating. It was also spot on for Mercury conjoining Pluto. I agree. And that's the thing, is that if you can spot a Mercury-Pluto conjunction in relation to a podcast that just happens to pop up in your feed that you listen to, that's the astrological life. And there's a lot of benefit in that outside of whatever you're listening to be able to reflect upon what you are listening to as an archetype is so valuable. Mercury-Pluto. My grandmother, who passed away 15 years ago, received a letter from the bank regarding the status of her account and remaining balance, and I have to deal with it. Communication from the underworld about riches. Yeah, there it is, Mercury-Pluto. I have not had a TV in 14 years, another subscriber says. I live in a rural community where TV service is pricey. I'm on a fixed income. No big deal because I have reasonable rural Wi-Fi and binge watch YouTube. However, within 3 days of Mercury conjoining Pluto, out of the blue, two non-related friends gifted me their former TVs after they upgraded. So from 0 TVs for 14 years to 2, just like that. One is a smart TV in perfect working order, so I can watch through the internet. Yay, Mercury and Pluto. Yes. Deal with the devil? Maybe. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there's a Mercury-Pluto, a small event that becomes a cosmic event when you know astrology. Ugh, I don't even want to write this because it is so upsetting. I'm still feeling shaken, but earlier tonight I heard someone knocking at my front door and then weirdly knocking on one of my windows. I didn't want to go out because it was so dark, so I just ignored whoever it was, but it scared me. A little while later, there was some commotion outside, so I go out there and there's a guy and a girl who are passing a plastic bag to an animal control officer. Apparently, there was a cat hit by a car and they had waited to hand the body off to the animal control person. Immediately, my stomach was in knots because I feed a lot of cats who are like my family members. I asked to see inside the bag. I was preparing for the worst. But when I looked, it was a cat I'd never seen before, but he did look almost identical to one of mine. It was just very bizarre. Apparently, the guy knocking at my door was one of the finders who thought maybe the cat was mine. A few of the neighbors then started talking about, yes. So anyway, so it goes on. But the simple point being that this Mercury, it was Mercury-Pluto again, where there was a messenger of death that came to the door with the body of a dead animal, a dead cat that they thought might have been hers. Turns out it wasn't, but wow. I mean, it's such a weird, simple event. And I mean, I feel like if you didn't know astrology, you might be startled by it and you might get the shivers or the chills, so to speak. You might note it as a different kind of event. There's a little ripple in the fabric of space and time when things like that happen to people who know nothing about astrology. And I think people notice it. When you do have astrology, that ripple it's I don't know, it's weird. It's like a cosmic paintbrush coming down and putting color all around what's happening. On this day, Mercury conjunct Pluto, I told the person that I'm in a relationship that I will no longer be their mistress. Yes, I said it. Mistress. Not what you were expecting? Me either. So they go on to tell the story of how they started having an affair with a married man and being promised all sorts of things that they realized were never going to happen. And so they get to this point, Mercury conjoins Pluto after talking with their therapist, where they say, no more. I'm breaking the news to you that I will not be your mistress. Good for you. I'm sure that was not easy, but I'm sure it was necessary. My niece called me Tuesday in major stomach pains, pain she's never felt before. I was looking at the aspects Mars-Pluto conjoining, and I knew that it was probably a stomach virus. Anyway, so her pains were very sharp. Turned out to be E. coli from Trader Joe's. Ooh, well, sorry. No, I did not mean to scare everyone away from Trader Joe's by saying that, but yikes, that sucks. I hope she got that straightened out. That sounds awful. But yeah, because you know Pluto and Mars, you knew that there was something probably a little bit more serious going on and were able to advise her to go see the doctor. That was part of this that I didn't read. So that's good. I mean, that's how astrology helps us. I've been in a relationship for 3.5 years, doing my best to make it work and have to come to terms that we are not right for each other. Thing is, we live together and are high school sweethearts. There's a trauma bond. After my engaged coworker, who we instantly clicked into sync with, and I think maybe the one, because you can just tell sometimes, nothing is hard with him, everything fits naturally, we get along really well. So I have identified as asexual for 20 years, and this person has also awakened within them, this coworker, their sexual desires. Okay, wow. And you're okay, let's keep going. At the beginning of the month, when this coworker admitted to having feelings for me, we've started to get attached to one another. Now we're talking every day. He got the ring back and is planning on making a breakup with his girlfriend, and I'm making moves to end my current relationship. And this is all happening as Venus is coming to conjoin Pluto this week. Drama. I hope it works out well. I mean, regardless, I would, just my experience of Venus Pluto, regardless of if this coworker is the one or not, if something has been awakened and if there's been clarification about your existing relationship and moving on, that can't be a bad thing. I would say to go easy with respect to entering into the new relationship, because if you attended my Pluto in Love webinar, quite frequently trauma bonding or any kind of like codependent dynamic with Venus Pluto can transfer into a new relationship that we see as the thing that will heal us or fix things. So you want to be a little, just my advice, unsolicited, take it or leave it. Be a little careful. But yeah. Anyway, story starts in 2017, the summer after my first year in college. My younger sister and I hung out almost every day with a mutual group of friends. There were several guys, one of which I was attracted to. So we started talking. He showed an interest in me. My sister told me one day that she liked him, as well as two other guys, one of which she was in a relationship with. I didn't think much of it because I thought it was normal to have crushes on multiple guys at that age. I also did not disclose to her my own feelings because at the time I still was not sure of our connection. So they started seeing each other. One thing led to another. We became physical. And we hooked up a few times before he confessed to me that he had hooked up with my sister once before we started talking. This shocked me to the point that I had a little mental breakdown. Never talked about my sister before then, so it never even crossed my mind that this was a possibility. I felt awful and betrayed. We hung out a few more times and we broke it off, and I never told my sister. So anyway, she goes on for quite a ways to tell about how in 2023, they finally have a conversation about it. Everything comes out all hunky-dory. We're all going to move past it. And as Venus and Pluto come together, they're invited to a house party, and they both get there. And what do you know? Wody-dody, there he is. So they said hi. They left the party. Sister stays behind. Anyway, they go out again the following weekend, and sees him again, and they had a hug and decided that they just want to be cool and be friends going forward. She sees her sister a little later in the evening, and they have a big fight about the whole thing. And this goes on for paragraphs and paragraphs, guys, so I apologize. By the way, just a piece of advice to everybody: try to make your stories super concise. It's easier for me to recount the stories, especially when they're good ones. This is a good one. Anyway, so long story short, they had a major sisterly feud after re-encountering this guy that they both had hooked up with. And she had to sort of stand her ground and find some confidence in the situation, which was very hard to do because there's a lot of tangled, complicated emotions on both sides. A feud with a sister. Venus is love and sex and sisters. Did you know that Venus was one of the planets associated with sisters? So there's a major conflict over a guy that both sisters had hooked up with, and see again as Venus is conjoining Pluto. Can't make this stuff up. It has always been part of the deal that when my husband and I were finished having biological children, I would have a mommy makeover to balance everything out. It entails different things for different people, but for me, for whatever reason, this area of fat around my upper abdomen has always bothered me. It's one of those areas that needs to be removed surgically because diet or exercise won't do it. I underestimated the psychic mental effects this would have on releasing my mother's energies because this was something that her mother had as well. Yes. So, and she says, likely, I underestimated the psychic mental effects this would have on releasing my mother's energy, likely her traumas, because this type of fat storage is likely related to stress cortisol patterns, then passed to me. After the surgery was finished, and this happened as Venus conjoined Pluto, my mind felt so much clearer. Fat cells allegedly stop growing after age 25-ish. So I don't know if any of this is true, by the way. I'm just reading what they wrote. So I am so happy that everything is now in its more proper place. By proper, I mean at rest and less stressful. So mommy makeover leads to the releasing of fat in the body, but there's some connection with mom. It feels appropriate for Venus Pluto, like a cosmetic surgery that has this kind of trauma history behind it. So I can see how Venus Pluto is certainly related to that kind of procedure, but then also the sense of there being a big karmic relief that you feel is connected to mom because she had the same like sort of fat deposit. Wow. I mean, when is astrology helpful? Right? I mean, that's ultimately what people are interested in, whether they're getting a reading or consuming YouTube content. We want to know, well, when and how is astrology useful? It is useful when it helps us to discover that fat is more than literal fat. And the planets, when they are combining at such moments, are very clearly showing us that there is a karmic, energetic level of reality as much as there is a physical one. When a feud with a sister is taking place in the underworld, Venus and Pluto show you that the terrain in which something is happening is multidimensional and cosmic. When you can just feel that he's the one, but you have to break up with the spouse, when you're going from asexual to feeling sexual, and Pluto is lurking with Venus. When you can tell the stomach virus is Hades, when you break things off with someone and the words, "I am not your mistress," are Pluto's speaking. When there are cosmic deaths of animals right outside your door, coloring the way in which you experience someone knocking at your window. When Pluto gifts you with a TV set. When Hades is moving through letters found in desks at school and nobody is listening, and you can sense that things may erupt if things are not taken more seriously, gives you an ominous feeling of urgency. You know that these things are real because the planets are there in your understanding. When the podcast you randomly listen to speaks to worst case thinking and changing your thinking, and Mercury and Pluto are conjoining. When a squabble over a girl leads to death threats. My God, Mars-Pluto. When a Valentine's Day gift and evening is covered in cosmic trauma that makes it hard to look at your strawberry, your strawberry cupcake. When homophobia is very clearly related to Venus-Pluto and trauma in a person's life around sexuality. When you're having difficult conversations for breakfast, when you are preparing to speak to a husband in therapy and you're like, I'm ready to eat a difficult conversation for breakfast this morning. May not be easy, but I know I need to do it. Venus and Pluto are coming together in the sky. See, our lives are enriched because a lot of those things on the list today, I mean, they may as well go in the shit heap bin of Pluto stories. A lot of them are kind of bummers or heavy or dark. But when we live an astrological life, they become that and so much more. I mean, aren't there times in life where you need to listen to something played in a minor key? Aren't there times where, lamentation or the blues are worth singing? And we have no problem imagining that life includes singing the blues through something like music or poetry or film. We have a harder time grasping the idea that inherent in the experiences themselves are archetypal patterns. So for some reason, we think that the realm of the arts, well, in that realm, it's okay to make our experiences artistic. But as soon as you start suggesting that the universe itself, in the way that experiences flow, is artistic, inherently people think you're crazy. But that's what we astrologers live with every day. There's nothing to hide, there's no shame in it. And it makes our lives more manageable. Let's be honest, like any of those experiences, it could be a little heavy or stressful. You have the planets there, and you know that there is a music playing presently in the experience. It doesn't mean that you have the answers to anything because you have that awareness. But it also, just like music takes you often outside of the need for answers, so does astrology. It just takes you into an aesthetic appreciating capacity for the intelligence, the beauty, the divinity, the mysterious order of things. And we need that. We need that. I believe that it's a fundamental human need. And a lot of the times, because so many of us are dealing with such, like on Maslow's hierarchy or whatever that is, we're dealing with such basic features of survival. But astrology, I don't think that you have to have you can have very little and be struggling with a lot of very basic things and still have some access to a paradigm in astrology that is truly for the people. It is for all human beings. And with that, all of our basic struggles in life can become so much richer. We can step back into our birthright, which is to live in a beautiful cosmos whose meaning is really not so inaccessible to us. Ancient people knew this language. We've forgotten it, but we can remember it very easily. And your stories are a big part of how we do that on this channel. So I want to thank you for sharing them. If you ever have a story to share, use the hashtag grabbed or email us your story, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. We'd love to feature you on a future storytelling episode. Don't share anything that you don't mind me reading, as I just did. And you could put the hashtag grabbed, name the transit, and then put your story in the comments section, or do the same thing via email. The other thing is keep it concise. As you can see, the longer that they are, the more I have to sort of summarize, even if they are good stories. So anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this storytelling episode. Stick around, because after I sign off, I'm going to be interviewing my wife, Ashley, who is an herbalist, about her upcoming apprenticeship program, which she is teaching again for the first time in a few years after coming back from maternity leave. So if you guys like the doctrine of signatures, plant medicines, plant spirit medicine, talking with plants, working with plants, ancient astrologers and ancient herbalists were cut from the same cloth. So I think if you guys enjoy my work, you'll love Ashley's. So stick around afterward and check it out. All right, that's it for today. Have a good one, everyone. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for sticking around. I'm really happy to be joined by my wife, Ashley, who is an herbalist. Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
And yeah, I'm really excited to be helping Ashley promote her upcoming program, which is something that you actually began teaching many years ago, this herbal apprenticeship program. I think it was 2011 or 12 that it got started, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been over 10 years I've been offering this course, and yeah, it's my favorite thing to teach.
Yeah. And just to be clear, because some people on my channel, most people know you because you pop on here or there. We talk about herbs and astrology. There's an attraction in our marriage and an attraction in the subject matter that is old. Like, we've been together for 14 years in our relationship going on, and we've always had a fascination with each other's areas of expertise, and we've done lots of things to marry them together over the years, in addition to literally getting married. And and actually, herbalists and astrologers have married the subjects of herbs and planets together for thousands of years as well. Now, your program is focused on uh, herbalism. It's not an astrology course, but there is certainly a lot of overlap in terms of the energetics and the spiritual approach to herbalism that you take. And so I was hoping that we could start off just by telling people a little bit about the program. You're coming to this after taking a little bit of time on maternity leave. Our kids were not yet in school. Now they are. You're coming back to work. This is really exciting. The new program launches at the end of April. I'm going to put it up on the screen so people can see it. You can find it at skyhouseherbs.com. Enrollment is open now. The course begins. You go under Courses, Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship at the end of April. Tell us about it.
Well, this course, I guess my goal in redesigning the apprenticeship course that I've been teaching for 10 years is to make it even more personal and to allow people to study the material, digest it at their own pace. So what it's going to be is a combination of kind of three main parts. The first one is the recorded material. So there's going to be modules that will be released, and people can listen to them as they have time. The second part are live classes, where we will meet live on Zoom and talk about the module, I'll answer questions, I'll give even more information about it. And then the third part is the sacred plant pairings. And so I've always taught the herbal portion, like the plant diets, one at a time, but this year I'm going to do it in pairs, because I think you can learn a lot by comparing and contrasting herbs. So for every module, you'll have 2 herbs to study, and you'll get a little cheat sheet about them before you start the module. And then you'll have an opportunity to work with those 2 plants and blend them and keep them separate and just really work with them closely. Because my goal is that I want people to be able to find information that they can really use in their own lives, maybe with clients, if they whether they have a professional herbal practice or maybe they're a therapist in a different field, that they'll know these plants so that they can work with them really comfortably.
I love the different modules that you have just so we can preview them for people. Module 1 is Vitalism and the Heart of Herbalism. Module 2, Building Your Home Apothecary. They're so diverse. I love Module 3 is my favorite, Plant Spirit Medicine. Energetics and chemistry. You have such a holistic approach. It's what I've always loved about your teaching. You'll teach about the doctrine of signatures. You'll talk to people about how to communicate with plants, how to think of them as teachers that are living beings that have personalities that aren't just, phytochemistry or whatever. But you will also teach phytochemistry.
Mhm.
And I think that you have this really well-rounded way of helping people be intelligent about the plants, about the body, about the systems of the body, but also not afraid to use energetic systems, not afraid to take something from the kinds of energetics that ancient mystics were working with, whether that's the elements or whether that's, some of the overlay with things like Ayurveda,
Yeah.
Chinese medicine. You take what's useful on a symbolic and energetic plane and on a personal connection level with the plants, and you marry it to really smart scientific research. I think that's rare. You don't see that a lot.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, to me, it's all language. They're just different languages that we talk about the same thing. And I think the more diverse our languages as herbalists, the more we can reach more people. And that's kind of my goal. Like, I want everyone to be able to identify plants, use plants. So we need to diversify the languages we speak so we can talk with our physicians, so we can talk with a therapist, we can talk with a mystic, right? We can talk with children and we have a language that everyone can use.
You talk in the program in your modules. You have stuff on digestive and gut health. You have stuff on detoxification, colds and flus, and dealing with virus seasons. You talk about tissue states, and you're talking about how to give things to your kids for helping them maybe at times even relax before bed at night. We use a lot of different things with our kids. I love this that you have called this a I'm going to find the phrase where you use, and I'm going to mess it up. A community herbalist. What is a community herbalist so that people can understand that definition? Because sometimes people might look at a course like this and think, gosh, unless I go to, an accredited university for, 8 years and learn all about chemistry, I have no right or business suggesting herbs to people or using herbs. That's just not true. And that's not the history of how folk herbal medicine has been used or taught. So what do you mean when you say community herbalist?
I think you said it perfectly. That this is the people's medicine, and our grandmothers and great grandparents used plants as medicine. There's nothing actually that hard about the practice of herbal medicine. It's just getting to know the plants and getting to know the times when they're most useful. I really envision that this course people can take it and yes, use it for themselves. Number one, because I think a lot changes when we have the personal experience. And then using it in your family, whether that's just, maybe making a tea for your dog or, if you have kids or maybe you just have a partner, maybe you have plants you can use, and we'll talk about taking care of a garden, but using it for yourself, for whoever's immediately around you, and then taking it beyond that, because it's likely that at some point you're going to be talking with someone. They're going to say, oh, I've got this digestion thing and I've tried this and this. And they might say, hey, you're studying herbs. Is there anything that you would recommend? And you know what? You'll probably have a few ideas. And that, you never know how one way that you help someone out there in the world might trickle and then help others and more people. So I think through the self-knowledge and studying this knowledge in your own body, it'll naturally, it's impossible for it not to spread out and start to affect the broader community.
Yeah, I think that's really important. This is also for that reason, because we have a vision. I mean, you guys know through my Kickstarter, you guys helped us build a community herbal medicine garden that Ashley's been hosting free and donation-based events out of, that the donations go right back into the garden and just growing the medicine that we then find ways of harvesting and giving to other people or letting other people come and harvest. We have a vision. We always have, back to the days when we had our yoga studio in Maryland. We have always had a vision of making this sacred knowledge accessible to people. And that is both there in this program in terms of the way you're framing what it means to be an herbalist. It might mean that you're a professional and you see clients, and you could continue beyond this program developing the skills to do that. This would certainly set you up for success. You could also go forward and be someone who uses what you know with friends and family and yourself. And that's an incredible set of tools to have. The program's also very accessible from both a programming standpoint and a price standpoint. I'm going to take you back over and show everybody the programs. The modules are pre-recorded, but then you meet outside of the modules for discussion, community, Q&A, and sort of development and integration. So people can attend those live. If they miss those integration sessions, they can also watch the replays of those. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
anyone could take this at their own rate, as slowly or as quickly as you wanted to, really soak it in, or blaze through it. And then we can certainly, beyond this program, as Ashley perhaps makes more advanced programs available as she's easing back in out of maternity leave, can help you with further development or recommend you to many other wonderful programs where you could continue your studies. We want this to be accessible. We want community herbalism to be, as simple as being able to show a friend a couple of yoga stretches. We should be able to show each other herbs, and just, hey, this is a helpful herb to use. Also, accessibility price-wise, we have an early bird enrollment, and we have standard enrollment. And then we have tuition level 1 assistance and tuition assistance level 2, which break out the affordable tuition into different levels of affordability. And you can kind of identify where you're at if you're someone who wants to take this program but needs to work within your means and not hurt yourself doing it. And then for those who can pay, we ask that you use standard or early bird enrollment. And that's the same thing I do for all my astrology programs. So we try to keep it super, super accessible. The Herbal Apprenticeship program starts April 24th. I know Ashley's super excited to be getting back into teaching too. I also would like to offer Ashley just a chance to tell everyone a little bit about, before we end here this interview, tell everyone maybe a little bit about your own background, who you studied with, what your influences are, and just anything else you want to say before we cap it off.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think, I started off as a kid playing in the woods, mixing perfumes and potions. And then I went on to study environmental science, where I studied organic chemistry and restoring native wetlands. And really, from an environmental perspective, that's how I got into herbalism. And then after, I realized, after working on the restoration piece and joining a lot of earth advocacy groups, that the problem's not with the earth, but with the people not understanding the value of the earth. So then I started going into holistic medicine. I graduated from the University of North Carolina, Asheville, with a degree in interdisciplinary studies. And I went on to get my that was my undergrad, and then I got my master's from the Maryland University of Integrative Health. It was then called Tai Sophia. But my teachers there, I had such a great blend of teachers, really scientific minds, like Simon Mills from the UK, and Kevin Spellman, who is like a chemistry genius, who's also an Ayurvedic practitioner, who studied with Dr. Vasant Lad. Matthew Prisco, medicine maker from Galen's Way out in California. So I had a really wonderful, diverse variety of teachers in that 3-year full-time master's level program. And then after that, I went on to study with Matthew Wood pretty intensively, because I liked his energetics. I liked the way he spoke about the plants and his personal experience working with low dose, drop dose medicine. And he has had amazing, he's done such amazing work herbally with just using that method. And gosh, I've got a lot of herbalists in my
David
basket.
Duke comes to mind, and
Jim Duke.
Jim Duke. Sorry,
Jim
my bad.
Duke, Margie Flint, Rosemary Gladstar is like, I've only done one herb walk with her, but it was amazing. So, I have shelves of herbal books and people who I just adore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel really grateful that I've had that blend of the science and the energetic herbalism and the traditional herbalist perspective as well. And I try my best to blend them together and to give everyone a really diverse yet integrated herbal studying experience.
Yeah, absolutely. You get that. That is exactly what you'll get if you sign up for Ashley's program, which I encourage you to do. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, you won't regret it. It's a fantastic course with someone I absolutely love, obviously, but also like a really, truly fantastic human being and teacher of
Oh,
plant medicine.
thank
And
you.
if you want to learn more about her, see her work, get to know her a little bit, check out her YouTube channel, Skyhouse Herbs, where she publishes weekly on plant medicine, plant energetics, and also on Instagram, which is Skyhouse Herbs. So the apprenticeship program starts April 24th. I wanted to get Ashley on, brag about her program, turn you guys on to it. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I'm sure that we're going to see some people from the Nightlight astrology world getting introduced to you and all of your magic.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye.